When my lawyer revealed in open court that my husband had secretly plotted to steal my inheritance, I collapsed into my chair as the room spun around me. Days later, I was sleeping in my childhood bedroom, locked out of the home I built with my own hands. That's when I realized marriage licenses and prenuptial agreements are just paper tigers. They look fierce until they get wet with tears. If you're watching this, please subscribe and tell me where you're from. Because trust me, this story twists more than a hurricane hitting a roller coaster, and you won't want to miss what happens next. My name is Clara, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I was living the American dream. My father had built Montero Industries from nothing into a regional powerhouse. When he passed away last year, I inherited the company alongside my husband Marco, who'd worked with Dad for almost a decade. We had a beautiful home overlooking the harbor, respect in the community, and what I thought was a rock-solid marriage of 15 years. The day everything fell apart started normally. I woke up beside Marco, kissed him goodbye as he left for an early meeting, and headed to my own office at headquarters. My father's attorney, Mr. Antunes, had requested a meeting about some routine paperwork regarding the final settlement of Dad's estate. I thought nothing of it. When I arrived at the courthouse, I was surprised to see several members of the company board already seated. Marco wasn't there yet. Mr. Antunes nodded grimly when I entered, his usually friendly face tight with something I couldn't read. Mrs. Montero, he began formally, I've asked you here today because I can no longer in good conscience proceed without your knowledge. My stomach dropped. Knowledge of what, exactly? He placed a folder on the table. Your husband has been working to consolidate control of Montero Industries for the past 8 months. He's convinced several board members to support removing you from leadership. I laughed nervously. That's impossible. Marco would never. He's filed paperwork claiming you're emotionally unstable following your father's death and unfit to manage the company. The room went silent. I could hear blood rushing in my ears. There's more, Mr. Antunes continued, his voice barely audible now. He's petitioned to invalidate your father's will based on alleged dementia in his final months. I was about to respond when the door swung open. Marco walked in, confident and smiling until he saw my face. His expression changed instantly as he realized what was happening. Clara, he said softly, reaching for me. You weren't supposed to find out this way. Script part separator ===. Don't touch me, I hissed, yanking my arm away as board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Marco's face hardened. You're overreacting, proving my point exactly. Overreacting. My voice shook. You're trying to steal my father's company. Your father's company that I helped build for the last decade while you were playing businesswoman. His voice dropped to a whisper only I could hear. Everyone knows you got your position through nepotism. The cruelty in his eyes shocked me. Who was this man? Not the person I'd shared my bed with for 15 years. I'd like to proceed, Mr. Antunes interrupted, nodding to the judge who'd entered unnoticed during our confrontation. Mrs. Montero deserves to hear exactly what's happening to her inheritance. The next 2 hours were a blur of legal jargon and betrayal. Marco had been methodically rewriting company bylaws, transferring assets, and consolidating power. He'd convinced the board I was emotionally fragile after Dad's death, using my grief as a weapon against me. These transactions require Mrs. Montero's signature, Mr. Antunes pointed out. Marco Smail Colli. Check again. Clara signed power of attorney over to me last month. I gasped. That was for our vacation property in Maine. The document wasn't limited to real estate, Marco replied smoothly. Your signature authorized me to act on your behalf in all financial matters. The judge frowned. Mr. Antunes, is this accurate? Unfortunately, Your Honor, it appears to be. However, I believe there's evidence of deliberate misrepresentation. This is ridiculous, Marco interrupted. My wife is clearly unstable. Just look at her. I realized I was trembling, tears streaming down my face. Every board member watched me falling apart, confirming Marco's narrative perfectly. I need a recess, I whispered, standing on wobbly legs. The court grants a 48-hour continuance, the judge announced. During which time, all company assets remain frozen. Marco smiled confidently. No problem, Your Honor. As I stumbled toward the door, Marco caught my arm again. Clara, he said quietly. Don't go home. I've changed the locks. Script part separator, I sat in my car for nearly an hour, hands gripping the steering wheel, unable to drive. My entire life had just collapsed. When my phone rang, I jumped. Clara, where are you? It was Helena, my childhood friend who'd become a corporate attorney at a rival firm. The courthouse parking lot, I managed. I can't. I don't know where to go. Come to my place. Now. I drove on autopilot to Helena's downtown apartment. She opened the door, took one look at my face, and pulled me inside. He locked me out, I whispered. 15 years of marriage, and he locked me out of my own home. Helena poured me a scotch. Start from the beginning. As I explained, her expression darkened. That snake. That absolute viper. I never saw it coming, I admitted. All those late nights he said were spent working. He was plotting against me. Men like Marco don't change overnight, Helena said. This has been his plan all along. But why? We built a good life together. She leaned forward. Clara, what's Montero Industries worth now? About 40 million. And before your father hired Marco? I thought back. Maybe 10 million. Dad always said Marco helped modernize everything. So he quadrupled the company's value, doing the real work while you, in his mind, just inherited your position. Helena's voice was gentle but firm. Marco doesn't think you deserve what you have. Her words hit me like a physical blow. Was that how he saw me? Just a pampered daughter riding her father's coattails? I earned my MBA. I protested weekly. I've worked there since college. I know that, Helena said. But Marco clearly believes he deserves more. I stared into my drink. What do I do now? He's turned the board against me. He has power of attorney. I can't even get into my house. Helena's expression changed. You fight. Starting tonight. How? He has everything. Not everything, she said, pulling out her laptop. First, we need to understand exactly what he's done. Then we freeze your personal accounts before he drains those too. Is that legal? More legal than what he's doing. She paused. Clara, I need to ask, did you ever suspect anything? Late phone calls? Hidden communications? I thought of Marco's password-protected laptop, the way he always took calls in another room. Maybe I didn't want to see it. Well, now we need to see everything, Helena said grimly. Because you have exactly 48 hours before you lose it all. Script part separator, That night, I barely slept on Helena's guest bed. By 5 a.m., I was wide awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through 15 years of memories, re-examining every conversation with Marco, looking for clues I'd missed. Helena found me in her kitchen at dawn, already on my third cup of coffee. You need to get dressed, she announced, dropping a garment bag on the counter. For what? I asked numbly. For war. She unzipped the bag, revealing a crisp charcoal suit I'd never seen before. We have a 7 a.m. meeting with Judge Reynolds, off the record. The judge. How did you? I clerked for her before joining private practice. She'll give us 15 minutes before court officially opens. Helena checked her watch. Which means we have exactly 40 minutes to make you look like a woman in control, not a victim. The courthouse was eerily quiet as we arrived. Judge Reynolds, a stern woman in her 60s, was waiting in her chambers. Mrs. Montero, she nodded. Ms. Santos explained your situation. I can't offer legal advice, but I can tell you this, courts hate being manipulated. Marco manipulated me, not the court, I said. Actually, Helena interjected. We have reason to believe Marco falsified documents filed with this court. That's fraud. Judge Reynolds frowned. That's a serious accusation. One we intend to prove, Helena said confidently. But we need time. The judge studied me carefully. De continuance ends tomorrow. I can't extend it without cause. What if I had cause? I asked suddenly. What if there were evidence of criminal activity? That would be different, she conceded. As we left, Helena grabbed my arm. What criminal activity? I took a deep breath. 2 months ago, I found financial records on Marco's laptop that didn't make sense, transfers to offshore accounts. He said they were tax structures Dad had set up. Helena's eyes widened. And you believed him? He was my husband, I whispered. I trusted him. Where is the laptop now? At the house. In our bedroom safe. The house you're locked out of, Helena said grimly. I nodded, then felt a strange calm settle over me. I need to get in there. Tonight. Breaking and entering won't help your case, Helena warned. It's not breaking in if I still legally own the house, I replied, a plan forming. And I know someone who might still have a key. Script part separator, I spent the afternoon making calls, reconnecting with old employees my father had trusted. By evening, I had something almost as valuable as a key, the name of the security company that had installed our home system. Mr. Garcia had worked with my father for 20 years. When I explained my situation, leaving out the most humiliating details, his weathered face darkened. Your father would be turning in his grave, he muttered. E quem override de system remotele, Mr. Monteiro. 20 minutes window, no more. Tonight. He nodded. 11 p.m. Don't turn on any lights. I felt like a thief approaching my own home that night. The security panel blinked green exactly at 11, just as Mr. Garcia promised. I slipped inside, heart pounding. The house felt different, alien. Marco had already changed things. A bottle of expensive whiskey I'd never seen before sat open on the counter. Women's perfume hung in the air, not mine. I moved silently to our bedroom. The safe was hidden behind a painting of the harbor. I entered the code, praying Marco hadn't changed it. It opened. Inside was Marco's laptop, financial documents, and, unexpectedly, my mother's jewelry, which had disappeared months ago. Marco had claimed it was being cleaned. Another lie. I grabbed everything, stuffing it into my bag. As I turned to leave, headlights swept across the driveway. Marco was home, and he wasn't alone. A woman's laugh drifted through the open window. I froze, trapped in my own bedroom as the front door opened. Marco's voice carried up the stairs, followed by female giggles. Make yourself comfortable, he was saying. I will open some champagne. I looked frantically around the room. The balcony was my only escape route. I slipped outside, clutching my evidence, and climbed down the trellis like I had as a teenager sneaking out. Back in Helena's car, parked 2 blocks away, I struggled to catch my breath. Did you get it? She asked. I nodded, unable to speak. Not only had I recovered the evidence, but I'd learned something else. Marco hadn't just betrayed me financially. He'd replaced me entirely. Script part separator, Helena drove us back to her apartment, where I immediately powered up Marco's laptop. The password screen glared at me. Any ideas? Helena asked. I tried our anniversary date. Failed. His birthday. Failed. His mother's name. Nothing. Wait, I whispered, typing in the date we took over the company after Dad died. The screen unlocked immediately. Fiching, Helena Muterid. We spent hours combing through files. Financial records showed millions flowing through shell companies. Board members received consulting fees that looked suspiciously like bribes. Most damning was an email chain between Marco and someone named VL, discussing how to neutralize Clara's position. This is gold, Helena said, downloading everything. But who's VL? E Froze, recognition eating like a thunderbolt. Vitor Laszlo. My father's former business partner. The one your dad bought out years ago? Dad said Victor was embezzling. They nearly went to court before settling privately. Helena's eyes widened. So Marco partnered with your father's enemy. My father's correct judgment of character is what built Montero Industries, I said, anger replacing shock. And I'm his daughter. Down, Helena called Mr. Antunes. By 9 a.m., we were meeting in his office. Marco overplayed his hand, Antunes said after reviewing our evidence. But the board still supports him. Because he's paying them, I countered, showing him the records. This changes everything, Antunes admitted. But we need more than financial irregularities. We need proof he deliberately misled you about the power of attorney. I hesitated, then pulled out my phone. I recorded our conversation at the courthouse. He admitted I thought I was signing for the vacation property. Antonis smiled for the first time. That's the smoking gun. We have 24 hours, Helena reminded us. The hearing resumes tomorrow. Not enough time to prepare properly, Antonis said. Then we need to buy more time, I replied, a plan forming. And I know exactly how. Script part separator, I spent that afternoon contacting every loyal employee I could still trust at Montero Industries. My executive assistant, Marlene, who'd worked for my father before me, was horrified by Marco's betrayal. He's calling an emergency board meeting at 7 tonight, she whispered over the phone. Something about finalizing the transition before tomorrow's hearing. Perfect timing. At 6:45, I walked into Montero headquarters for the first time since the courthouse revelation. The security guard's eyes widened. Mr. Monteiro, I thought you were ill. I'm much better now, thank you. E hold the elevator to the top floor. My heart hammering against my ribs. Through the glass walls of the boardroom, I could see Marco already holding court, board members nodding as he gestured enthusiastically. When I pushed open the door, the room fell silent. Clara, Marco recovered quickly, flashing that smile that once made my knees weak. This is a pleasant surprise. Is it? I placed a manila folder on the table. I thought you might be expecting me. We're discussing sensitive matters, he said smoothly. Perhaps we could catch up afterward? I smiled. Actually, these sensitive matters concern me directly. As majority shareholder, one of the board members, Peterson, cleared his throat. Marco explained your situation. We all agree it's best if you focus on your health right now. My health is excellent, I replied, making eye contact with each person around the table. My marriage, however, is terminal. Marcos smile faltered. Clara, you're embarrassing yourself. Am I? I opened the folder and began distributing documents. These are financial records showing irregular payments from company accounts to each of you. Payments arranged by my husband without board approval or shareholder knowledge. The room erupted in nervous murmurs. Marco slammed his hand on the table. This meeting is adjourned. It most certainly is not, came a voice from the doorway. Mr. Antunes entered with 2 police officers. These officers have some questions about potential financial fraud. Script part separator, Marco's face drained of color. This is absurd. You can't just bring police into a private board meeting. They can when there's evidence of embezzlement, I replied calmly. And money laundering. And tax evasion. The board members exchanged nervous glances. Peterson was the first to crack. Marco assured us these arrangements were completely legitimate. Just like he assured me the power of attorney I signed was only for our vacation property. I pulled out my phone and played the courthouse recording. One of the officers stepped forward. Mr. Montero, we'll need you to come downtown for questioning. This is a civil matter, Marco protested, his charm evaporating. A marriage dispute. Financial fraud is criminal, the officer replied. You can come voluntarily or in handcuffs. The board watched in stunned silence as Marco was escorted out. Only when the door closed did the eruption begin, everyone talking at once, denying knowledge, claiming manipulation. I held up my hand. I'm not interested in excuses. You all betrayed my father's legacy for kickbacks. What happens now? Asked Wilkins, the oldest board member. That depends on your cooperation, Mr. Antunes interjected. Mrs. Montero is prepared to be reasonable, unlike her husband. I studied their anxious faces. The hearing tomorrow is postponed indefinitely while Marco explains himself to federal investigators. In the meantime, this company needs leadership. You're suggesting yourself? Peterson asked incredulously. I'm not suggesting. I'm telling. This is still my company. Straightened my shoulders. Anyone who disagrees can join Marco downtown. Anyone who stays needs to understand one thing. Montero Industries will be run with integrity again. As they filed out, Helena touched my arm. Impressive. But Marco will post bail by morning. I'm counting on it, I replied. Because the real fight is just beginning. Script part separator ===. The news of Marco's questioning spread through business circles like wildfire. By morning, my phone was flooded with calls from journalists, employees, and even competitors offering support, or looking for gossip. I returned to headquarters early, reclaiming my office before Marco could regroup. Marlene had already removed his personal items, her loyalty firmly re-established. Mrs. Montero, she said, placing coffee on my desk, there's something you should know. While you were gone, Marco had me archive your father's personal files. Archive or destroy? I asked sharply. She hesitated. He said archive, but the storage facility is owned by Victor Laszlo. The connection was becoming clearer. Have those files been moved yet? Scheduled for tomorrow. I've been slow to process the paperwork. I squeezed her hand gratefully. Keep stalling. And Marlene. Have security change all access codes immediately. Around noon, Helena called. Marco posted bail. His attorney is demanding an emergency hearing to unfreeze company assets. Let him, I replied. We have bigger problems. I need to recover my father's personal files before they disappear. What's in them? I don't know exactly, but Marco and Victor are desperate to get them. That means we need them first. I was reviewing security protocols when my office door burst open. Marco stood there, his perfect appearance slightly disheveled from his night in custody. You've made a serious mistake, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. I met his gaze steadily. My only mistake was trusting you. Script part separator ===. The boardroom felt like a pressure cooker as Marco and I faced each other across the polished table. 2 days had passed since his arrest and release on bail, and he'd called this emergency board meeting to clear the air. Let's be adults about this, Marco said, his voice reasonable, charming, the same tone he'd used to convince me to marry him 15 years ago. Clara's actions were rash and emotionally driven. The charges are baseless, as my attorneys will prove. I noticed how several board members nodded. His spell wasn't completely broken. The offshore accounts were your father's idea, Marco continued smoothly. A tax strategy he implemented years ago. Clara knew about them. That's a lie, I countered. And we all know it. Marco's smile never faltered. Your father wasn't the saint you believed him to be, Clara. Tell them, Peterson. Peterson cleared his throat nervously. Robert did authorize some unorthodox financial arrangements in his final years. And those arrangements, Marco pressed, included Victor Laszlo, didn't they? The room fell silent. I felt my confidence waver. My father would never work with Victor after what happened, I insisted. Marco pulled out a document and slid it across the table. This says otherwise. A partnership agreement signed by Robert Montero and Victor Laszlo 6 months before your father's death. I stared at my father's signature. It looked authentic. This is impossible, I whispered. What's impossible, Marco said gently, is that you never knew your father at all. Script part separator ===. The boardroom fell into uncomfortable silence. I stared at the document, mind racing. My father's signature looked genuine, but something felt wrong. This partnership agreement is dated 3 weeks after his stroke, I said slowly, realization dawning. When he could barely hold a pen. Marco's smile flickered. He recovered quickly. Not according to his medical records. I pulled out my phone, showing the email from Dad's doctor I'd requested that morning. He didn't regain fine motor control for 2 months. Documents get backdated all the time in business, Marco said dismissively. That's called fraud, Helena interjected from the doorway, walking in with Mr. Antunes and a distinguished older man I'd never seen before. Especially when signatures are forged. Marco's face hardened. Who is this? Calvin Werner, the older man introduced himself. Forensic document examiner. I've worked with the FBI for 30 years. We don't need, Marco began. I've compared this signature to verified samples, Werner continued, ignoring him. This is a sophisticated forgery. The board members shifted uncomfortably. Peterson looked particularly pale. That's ridiculous, Marco snapped. This meeting is over. Actually, Mr. Antony said, we have a warrant to seize all documents related to Victor Laszlo, including those mysteriously scheduled for archiving tomorrow. Marco's composure finally cracked. You bitch, he hissed at me. You have no idea what you're doing. I know exactly what I'm doing, I replied calmly. I'm taking back what's mine. As security escorted a protesting Marco from the building, I felt no satisfaction, only determination. Whatever my father had discovered about Victor Laszlo, it was dangerous enough that Marco would commit forgery to hide it. Script part separator ===. I spent the next 3 days buried in my father's recovered files, piecing together the truth. Marco hadn't been working alone. Victor Laszlo had bankrolled his entire operation, promising him control of Montero Industries in exchange for destroying evidence of their past dealings. It's worse than we thought, I told Helena as dawn broke on the 4th day. Victor wasn't just embezzling from my father years ago. They were partners in land development deals that went bad. How bad? Helena asked, rubbing her tired eyes. Toxic waste dump bad. They knowingly built on contaminated land. I pushed forward a folder of environmental reports. Dad discovered it and bought Victor out to fix the problem quietly. And Marco found these records and realized he could use them against my father's legacy. I felt sick. Victor offered him a deal, destroy the evidence and take over the company. Helena whistled low. That's why they were so desperate to get these files. Our temporary victory was short-lived. That afternoon, Marco filed a countersuit claiming I had fabricated evidence against him. Worse, he leaked selective parts of my father's records to the press, suggesting Montero Industries had covered up environmental violations for years. By evening, our stock had plummeted 30%. Reporters camped outside headquarters, demanding statements about toxic neighborhoods and corporate cover-ups. He's trying to destroy the company if he can't have it, Mr. Antonies observed grimly. I stared out at the chaos below. Then we need to stop hiding. What are you suggesting? I turned to face them. A press conference. Tomorrow morning. Full disclosure about everything, including how my father spent millions fixing Victor's mistakes. That's risky, Helena warned. So is doing nothing, I replied, my mind made up. It's time to play Marco's game, but better. Script part separator ===. The press conference was hastily arranged in the lobby of Montero headquarters. Every major news outlet in the region crowded in, cameras flashing as I approached the podium. My hands trembled slightly, but I kept my voice steady. Thank you for coming. I'm Clara Montero, and I'm here to tell you the truth about my father, my husband, and Montero Industries. For the next 40 minutes, I laid out everything. How my father discovered the environmental contamination, how he'd spent over $12 million on cleanup efforts without publicizing it, and how Marco had tried to use these records to seize control. My father made mistakes, I admitted. But when he discovered the truth, he dedicated himself to making it right. Unlike Victor Laszlo, who abandoned his responsibility, and unlike my husband, who tried to weaponize this history for his own gain, I revealed Marco's connection to Victor, the forged documents, and the offshore accounts. This company isn't perfect, but it will be transparent from this day forward. When I finished, the questions came rapid fire. I answered each one honestly, refusing to sugarcoat the past or promise miracles for the future. As the conference ended, Helena whispered, "Check your phone." An alert showed our stock had stabilized. Investors were responding to the transparency. Back in my office, I found Mr. Antonies waiting with a thin file. "Clara, there's something else you should see," he said gravely. "Something I should have shown you sooner." He handed me a sealed envelope with my name in my father's handwriting. "Your father gave me this a week before he died. Said I should only give it to you if there was ever a challenge to your leadership." With trembling hands, I opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a handwritten letter from my father. "Clara, if you're reading this, someone has challenged your right to lead. I always knew it might be Marco. I saw his ambition from the beginning, but hoped your love would temper it. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. What you need to know is that I left one final safeguard. The real ownership documents for Montero Industries are in a trust that only activates if someone tries to take control from you. Mr. Antunes has the details. I built this company for you, not for someone who married into our family. Lead with integrity, as I tried to do after my mistakes. All my love, Dad. I looked up at Mr. Antunes, tears streaming down my face. The trust documents were filed yesterday, he said quietly. Marco can't touch the company now, no matter what. The final confrontation happened 3 days later in court. Marco arrived confident, Victor Laszlo at his side. Their smiles faded as my father's letter was read into evidence, followed by the trust documents that placed 75% ownership firmly in my hands. This is fabricated, Marco shouted, losing his composure completely. She's lying. The judge's gavel came down hard. Mr. Montero, control yourself, or I'll have you removed. When the judge ruled entirely in my favor, Marco lunged across the aisle toward me. Security restrained him as he shouted obscenities. You'll regret this, he spat. I made you who you are. I stood calmly, watching the man I once loved being dragged away. No, Marco. My father made me who I am. You just showed me how strong I could be. 6 months later, Montero Industries had recovered completely. The environmental remediation program I expanded had turned into positive press. Marco pled guilty to lesser charges to avoid prison, while Victor Laszlo fled the country ahead of federal indictments. Sometimes at night, I still wake up wondering how I missed the signs for so long. But then I remember what my father wrote, lead with integrity. And that's exactly what I'm doing, one day at a time, stronger than before, and completely on my own terms.